Today we're joined by the incredibly talented Paul Sikivie, an acclaimed jazz double bassist and composer. Originally from Gainesville, Florida, Paul's been a vital part of the New York City jazz scene since 2007, performing with renowned artists such as Cecile McLorin Salvant, Aaron Diehl, and Matt Wilson. Beyond his extraordinary musicianship, Paul has gained recognition for his innovative compositions and arrangements, including his work melding string quartet and jazz piano trio on McLaurin Savant's Dreams and Daggers, which earned the 2018 Grammy for Best Jazz Vocal Album. So join us as we dive deep into Paul's musical journey, creative process, and unique contributions to the world of jazz. So Paul, good to see you. Thanks for joining me on this lovely Thursday.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Before we actually did our interview, I like to get in the mindset of speaking with the artists I'm going to talk to. I was actually just listening to a live stream you did with Dan Tepfer probably around 2021 during COVID.
Oh yeah, those were a lot of fun.
I, you know, it sounded to me like you were performing at like a venue or something. You were just there was no difference in how the way you played right there in your own room than the way you would play on a big concert or something. Everything was there, and it was just like, how did you feel when you were doing those type of live streams?
That's a great question. There's two parts to that. I mean, first of all, we were during the pandemic, so uh, I felt very hungry. I think as a lot of musicians did, to have that feeling of connection and that I think of it as like a feedback in a way. For the first couple months of the pandemic, actually, I was having a great time. I was practicing. I was kind of, taking a vacation. I felt well earned in a way because I usually stay pretty busy most of the time. But after a while, just not having that kind of feedback of positive audience response started to take its toll. And it's like part of the things that kept me going through life, just disappeared. So I started to get, I think we all somewhat understand that basic thing. So, the, you know, I haven't played that much with Dan through the years, but we do have a lot of friends in common, and we were hanging out, safely masked and stuff during the pandemic. And he's like, "Hey, man, why don't you do this thing?" And I was like, "Wow, great."
You guys sound like you've been playing together for a long time.
It's interesting, yeah. And so first of all, yeah, I think that we were both excited to play, as but I do think that there are some different types of musicians and some that play differently in different contexts and some that don't. And the part of it that doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic or the setting, I think that I don't know, there is something about me that I do feel I'm always going to try to bring it on a certain level, and that it doesn't matter whether there's two or three people listening or it's a huge audience. In fact, sometimes the bigger the audience, the easier it is for me to play, strangely enough.
The
But
bigger the audience?
yeah, it's like I would get more stage fright for a small, intimate audience, especially one where I can see two or three, mentors or intimidating peers, let's call them. Well, I'm not going to name any names, but
Where did you go to school again? You went to Juilliard, right?
I did my master's at Juilliard. Yeah, I
Right.
did my undergraduate at the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, Florida, where I got to give it a lot of credit. I played with a lot of great musicians that nobody will ever maybe know their names. Well, I could name some: Ricky Ravello, Kevin Bales, Von Barlow.
I know the name Kevin Bales.
Kevin Bales, yeah, he's gone on. He's educated in some other places. I think he's in Atlanta now. He's quite a fine
Mhm.
pianist. Ricky Ravello was my first bass teacher, and he's kind of a legend in the area. But it's interesting. Yeah,
Was Ben Wolf your teacher when you went to
Ben Wolf taught
Juilliard?
me for the 2 years at Juilliard. Yeah, and I learned quite a bit with him. He opened up my eyes to different.
I just interviewed him yesterday, so it's
He's an amazing musician, and he's got a great say individual perspective on the music. Like.
yeah, no, that's great. So when you were in Florida, like before going to school, to study jazz, I assume it was a jazz studies degree at in
That's right.
North Florida in Jacksonville, right?
Yep, that's right.
So were you playing jazz gigs in high school, like similar to the way you would play, trio gigs in New York when you got here, or did that not start until much later?
Yeah, I think playing was always the goal. The thing is that I really only played electric bass until basically my second year at UNF, but
Oh,
I played very much as if I was trying to play upright. I had a fretless, electric bass, and there was I played some gigs with my high school buddies and stuff, pretty casual. But right before I went off to UNF after my senior year of high school, I hooked up with a local trio, and we played like a Holiday Inn, like opening up for a comedian. It's already seems like a long lost world. This we're talking about 2001, so it is a long time ago. Uh, we're playing a Holiday Inn, $50 a night, which probably inflation hasn't even kept up with, and like three sets or something like that. And it felt like I had become a working musician.
how many days a week were you doing that?
I think it was a solid, bit of low paid work, but probably like four, I think 3 nights a week at least,
Three
something like
nights a week playing three sets.
for like a
Trio.
month or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
It was for just coming out of high school and doing that. It was cool for me. And the other guys were older and more experienced, so
Oh, for just coming out of high school, you probably felt like, you made it,
yeah. There was some suspicion in my mind that there must be another, echelon above this that I must reach, but something, it was good.
So the decision to go to Juilliard, that's when you first went to New York. So right when you got to New
It kind
York.
of didn't happen that way,
Oh
actually.
no. Okay.
I went to Juilliard as a result of coming to New York instead of
Got it.
vice versa. But
What prompted the decision to go back for your master's?
yeah, well, I always wanted to go to Juilliard, and I just moved to New York to play, really. I was decided I must go, I must follow this through to I've put enough time into this. I've gotten enough kind of positive feedback that I want to stake, I want to stay. I want to take a chance and go see what I can do. And then as it happened, I kind of got into Juilliard in a roundabout manner. I'm not gonna even go too into the details about it because I don't want to incriminate anybody. But let's just say that I had planned to apply to Juilliard after a couple of years of practicing and things like that. And the way things happened, I kind of landed in there, and it was cool.
So yeah, so when you're in that environment, like already working and stuff, and then you have to go back into the quote unquote like student mindset. It's got like at that point where you just like, oh, I just want to get back out into the real world again, or it was just like, I'm in this and I'm trying to gain as much as I can musically, and because that's the thing, like everyone's always looking for the other side of what's next. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I was really still 20. I was 23 when I got back into school for Juilliard. So I mean, considering I'm 41 now, I just feel like I was so young the whole time, that it seems like a blink of an eye that between the time I got out of school and got back in. So, uh, I would say that I was really more so like I was having a hard time adjusting myself to New York since I had really just gotten there, and that in hindsight, at least, Juilliard seemed like it was a nice kind of built-in structure for me to kind of get my feet wet. I don't think I was doing such a great job of going out to the sessions and petitioning the people that I wanted to play
Yeah, there's
with.
got to
And
be, I mean, unless you're motivated to every night go do something or, in a sense that sort of student environment. I mean, I went to New York for my master's, so that was like kind of like the, you know,
right,
introduction to being in New York City, and the jazz world. So I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, like, oh, I can't wait for this to just be over already.
yeah, yeah, it felt, I remember the school part of it felt a little bit, it felt a little bit like a drag, honestly. It felt like they could be more understanding that, you know, I'm here to play music and
I have to say, I would like to talk to you about this because you have a degree and a master's degree in music. Granted that Juilliard is, more prestigious and than NYU. I think that's just a fact, to be honest. not putting down NYU or
Right.
anything, but Juilliard is just you got to be able to. They expect more going in. That being
Probably.
said, though, I feel that the most experience gained is just the playing with people and playing in front of audiences and
Yeah.
listening to records and transcribing and going to hear live music, going to see people up close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about anything like similar to that before? You
I
know?
totally agree with that. I mean, I think that's kind of like the hidden secret of the whole thing is that everybody knows that. I mean, the joke of us at Juilliard was like, "Oh, I got my master's from Juilliard. Now I can go to Wynton Marsalis with my certificate and
Yeah.
demand that I have a job in his orchestra." And
Yeah.
no, that's not the case. And I don't know if you're hip to it, but the Tribeca Jazz Institute that Grant Stewart, one of my longtime
I know. I've heard of
employers,
it before. I don't know too much about it though. I know it's a
well,
very cool thing though, what he's
it's
doing.
super cool, and the basic like premise is exactly what you just outlined. That really the most important knowledge that you gain is from playing and from being in that experience, and you know, and basically it does you don't get a master's degree because they don't teach any of the you don't get a you get a traditional college diploma because you don't have the cultural aspects. You don't have to learn history. You don't have to learn, you know, English or any of that. So it's not real degree, but you do come and you pay $3,000 and you get taught by the Peter Bernsteins, the David Hazeltines, the Mike Ladons, the Farnsworth, these kind of the Paul Sikivis, and so I'm just gonna plug that right now as
So
another option.
you're working with that.
Yeah,
And
actually, just Tuesday before I got deathly ill, I went and taught an ensemble there, and I teach the private students sometimes and things like that. So
are the private students, are they all ages pretty much, or is it just like people
it's
coming
it's mostly in the age that you would expect somebody to come for college. Like I don't think I've even seen anybody in their 30s. Maybe one or two, but I don't think they're not trying to like keep older people out or anything like that. But mostly it's been people that you would normally consider to be in a college, and I think the point is like listen, if you can convince your parents that you don't need the degree, come and play and like just concentrate on the playing part and don't do all that other crap. So,
Yeah, if you could do that and then like go get your bachelor's degree online or something like that, like
yeah,
that would be much more cost effective.
totally. Or you, God forbid, study something that actually could get you a job one day and just do all the jazz
Yeah,
on the side.
exactly.
But, there's a good chance that you get distracted and never.
So
Uh,
when you're coaching the ensembles there, this is great. I didn't even know that you were coaching ensembles there. So
yeah,
I
my
like
CV is very hard to piece together from
what was that?
like finding out what I'm actually doing in the world. I realize it's not that easy to figure out from the internet or any other way. So.
Not really. I mean, you got to talk. That's why I have my podcast.
Thank
Um,
you. Yeah, it's a good chance.
so when you're coaching the ensembles, is it just like a standard like, sextet, or is it like what are the instrumentations? Because like how do you kind of work with them? Do you like have them listen to certain records? Do you like can you just give me like a little preview in a sense? Reader's
So yeah,
Digest.
in this case, it's just a trio. It's just guitar, bass, and drums. They have about room for three different ensembles at a per semester at TJI, and this one just didn't happen to get filled out with any horns. So basically, they already have their own repertoire that they're working on. They're learning a lot of the same songs that, pardon me, would be associated with this particular kind of scene in New York, which I'll call like a bebop, focused scene in a way.
Songbook stuff too. Like
Yeah, and in fact, in this case, I was kind of interested. They barely were playing any standards. They were playing some Barry Harris tunes. They were playing Elmo Hope tunes.
whoa.
It was very like, wow, like, 1960s, like lineage of Bud Powell and stuff like that.
So Grant's the structures that
I think he's the artistic director, and now he has another administrator, Chris Byers. I don't know if you know him, and
I know the name.
yeah,
And funnily enough, the first concert I ever saw in New York at Smalls, Grant Stewart was playing saxophone.
wow,
So if
yeah.
you could please pass the word, I would love to talk to him about this if you can.
Oh, sure. I think he'd be happy for that. Yeah, so in like basically they have these are, motivated kids, and I'm just helping them kind of figure out some more advanced. Like one of the things I like to talk about is like, okay, when is it time for you to do your little fill? When is it time? How does your band start to sound even more like mature, and how do you really support each other? That's some of the stuff that was coming up the other day. Is like they have a lot of the information, but sometimes it's like, okay, but you took a piece of a conversation that existed outside, and then you kind of tried to pigeonhole it into this situation. But actually, what was said in the conversation that you took isn't the important part. The important part is the function that it serves, to buoy up the soloist, or what have you, or to fill in the space so that the vibe doesn't drag down.
It's like this is, you know, really how to play with a band in a sense. And
Yeah, it's the thing that's really hard to learn sometimes, unless you really, you know, unless you have the experience, or unless you have somebody who seems to know, and then they tell you, okay, well, listen, that wasn't the right time to do that because XYZ.
you
Yeah.
know, you've worked with so many different bands and artists over the years. What have been the like really like some when I like really valuable experiences that pushed your
Mm.
playing to like I kind of feel like as artists like you're like in one phase and like you go up a little bit then you're in this phase, you know, like you get better and better.
Mm.
Was
Yeah,
there any experiences that you like come to mind right away that you got once complete you got to that next place?
totally. I think I could probably give you a handful. I mean, one of the big ones, I'm just gonna pass over the ones that happened even in Florida, where we were a part of a young group of musicians. We were all looking up to a certain level. We're like, oh, I want to do that gig, because. But Johnny O'Neill in New York was one of the big moments for me. That happened around 2010. Me and Lawrence Leathers, rest in peace, my old drum buddy. We got into his band around the same time, and he comes from that, the old school. He's was in the Jazz Messengers, and he also played with a whole host of great musicians. And eh, he just kind of he makes it clear what he wants, and a certain he wants it to be swinging. One of the few people to really put emphasis on the feel. Like you could play the right notes and basically in the right time, but if it's not swinging hard, then he's not going to be happy, and he's going to make a face. Sorry, Johnny, I love you, but that's what you did.
Were there
And
times where you felt like I'm swinging so hard I can't swing anywhere? Like I don't, you know.
I don't think I've ever felt like that. Uh, you know, I
I
felt I
spoke to
felt like
some
I
of the
had to question myself. What if I've exhausted all the ways I know how to make this better? Then it really made me, think. Well, you really got to figure out, like, so what else can I try if this isn't making him happy? And how am I seeing this? How am I not seeing this, from his point of view? Like,
No, I spoke to a lot of people who played in his band on this podcast actually, and
mm, yeah.
he comes to mind. How did you you know get into his band? Do you have any like did you guys just
Well,
kind of through the
yeah.
scene?
Me and Lawrence were playing with Aaron Diehl. It was really Lawrence's band. We would play every Friday at Smalls, or every other Friday for the jam session set. I think our set began at 1:30, which is pretty hard to imagine nowadays, or 1 if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, New York used to go on a later schedule. And when Johnny moved to town, he came around, he started coming around to all the spots to, make his presence known, exactly as he should. And he saw us, and he kind of hired us right off the bat to start playing this gig at Smoke, which was it was like a noon to 4 brunch every Saturday. So we had a lot of time to get together our repertoire with him. Uh,
So you play like noon to 4, and then at night you're playing somewhere on in the city.
Yeah, yeah, it's that, yeah, the hustle, staying busy.
I mean, it's you have to hustle when you want to. Well, you always have to hustle. That's no matter what. But did you ever have points like early on where you were maybe doing too much and getting too burnt out in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, I do love to work. I know that, and especially, I mean, if it's music, and but yeah, there's sometimes that I just would be coming in the door with my bass, and then like okay, I got a couple hours. All I really can imagine doing right now is lying down until I got to go right back out the door again. And it's like, yeah, I'm not really sure I would trade it, but
Yeah, you have to do that.
yeah. I mean, some people don't have to do that. Some people, sometimes it's not even a monetary thing or whatever. Or like, it's really a psychological thing of like, once you start saying no to things and trying to be more conservative, some sort of different mentality creeps in, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sorry.
Yeah, you
But
just kind of you become more selective, I suppose.
yeah, and I've done that too. I mean, at a certain point you say, okay, well, I don't need to take this gig and I'd rather have the night off and spend with my lovely girlfriend or to go, well, maybe I just want to watch the TV at home or whatever. It doesn't matter. But
Yeah, these
yeah,
are
at
things
some
you have to
point,
consciously think about, because when you're an artist starting out, or even people get older and they'll not say no to anything at all.
right, right. Yeah, and I mean, I think as a bassist or as a rhythm section member, I know that sometimes people hear you talking like this and they're like, wow, must be nice. I've heard that. So I want to as a word of solidarity to all my non-rhythm section or just people who are excellent and they're not currently enjoying that type of that busyness, then
You've
um
worked with so many people. It's like, the list goes, it's a pretty extensive list.
that's true. That's true. I've had good luck to work with a lot of people and
Who would you really like to work with? Like, who would you love to get a call from to go play at a jazz festival or something? And just,
I think some of the people that I would like to work with now, um, and I think me putting it out there on this podcast or this interview, I feel like I should have already made it more clear to them. But I'd like to play with Bill Charlap, and I'd like to play some with Steve Nelson, the vibraphonist, and I'd like to play with Peter Bernstein. Those are kind of some major inspirational musicians that I feel that I could offer something to them and also continue to grow, in my own.
I could tag them if you want in the.
No. Here, you put it out, and I'll send it to them.
Yes,
This
exactly.
email.
Yeah, we could crop that clip if
That would be nice. Yeah.
No, no, I mean that's great that you're like, yeah, I would love to play with these people. I'll say it here and there. So, and
Yeah.
that's a great pianist, Bill Charlap, Steve Nelson. That's so funny you just said him. Like, because I'm trying to I was trying
Mm.
to get his email to email him about doing the podcast, but I couldn't find it. And
Okay. I don't have his email, but
yeah, well, Pete's my old teacher, so
great.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, he knows. He knows. I think that I want to play with him, but I could try. I could try to make it more obvious. Is what I could do.
yeah, you should. I mean.
Mhm.
I'm sure will come to fruition in the not so distant future.
Thank
We're
you.
we're
Thank you.
putting it out in the universe, you know.
Blessing. Blessing. Love you, Pete.
So, what's going on for you? Talk to me a little bit about some things that you're looking forward to this year. I mean, we know we're in the midst of winter, but do you have any cool things coming up in the spring or in the summer, or even, more recent?
Yeah. Well, I've been working with Samara Joy quite a bit,
I should
and
have mentioned that.
yeah, this it looks like this year is going to be largely dedicated to supporting the album and touring. We're about to leave for Europe, well, Asia and Europe, and we'll be busy basically until April. So I'm going to be missing a lot of my New York standbys gig wise, but it's going to be great. It's going to be great fun. It's be a beautiful band. Always musicians are very dedicated, and she's a joy, no pun intended, to work with.
And when you're playing with someone on that level, like I'm sure like just the whole logistical things about the gigs and the travel, like that
Mm.
rises to another level as well.
It is, but she has now a great team taking care of all that. We actually travel with a road manager and a sound person, so that has taken a lot of the question marks that every day you wake up and it's a new box. It could be full of anything from A to Z.
But you
So
know what's going on though,
they
so
try to
it's
shield you against the worst, um, outcomes in that.
so
So
it's a good professional situation to be in when you're in supporting her artistically.
Yeah, it's about as painless as it could be, considering changing, cities every day, every couple of days, and so
Well,
it's
when it becomes more when you have like a road manager and a sound, like are you able to like actually kind of get out and sightsee a little more and stuff like that when there isn't that
it's
logistical
funny.
concern?
I think I try not to get too touristy unless like I have a whole day off, or yeah, it's that's kind of my rule. If I have to perform the day of, then I usually like to just basically stay in the room or, maybe take a quick walk, go get something nearby. But I've found for myself that if I start to try to build in any kind of sightseeing itinerary into the day, that I just lose my focus by the time the
I'm
gig.
the same. I don't want to do any. I hate traveling. I love to play, but like the traveling is what sucks, you know?
Yeah, it's just like why I don't know. And Rodney Green told me this very early when we were touring with Cecile. Don't forget why you're out here. We're not out here to, you know, be tourists and sightsee and all that stuff. And like, at the time I took it to heart and I understood what he was saying, but I also was like, well, that's just one way of looking at things. And over time, I think I've come to agree basically, at least for myself. I know I don't have all that much energy to spend every day, and that I know that performing takes a lot of my energy, even though I also get a lot of energy back from it. I don't want to come to it, especially Samara's doing 90-minute sets. It's not as much of an improvised kind of gig. A lot of it is precise, it's going to go a certain way. And so I don't want to be the one, missing this and missing that.
No, I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's there's energy there. Even me doing this interview, like it takes out, I have energy. Not saying you are, but it's to ask questions and be on
Sorry to
alert.
be a drag, Abe.
No,
My
no, you're
bad.
good. You're good. You're good. You're no, but it's like right after this, I need to like
Right.
chill. I can't go like start practicing and stuff immediately.
Sure.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Take a
no, but
chill.
but Paul, this has been great. I mean, such a great interview. And where can
Likewise.
everybody find your website and social media, all that stuff? Can you just share it?
Sure. Well, my website is kind of super outdated, but I promise I'll try to get it up to date. It's just my name, PaulSikivie, paulsikivie.com. And my Instagram is basically the way I just half the time communicate to people what I'm doing. And it's the same thing at PaulSikivie, at Paul Sikivie. And other than that, that's for now, that's kind of the most reliable way to find out what I'm doing. But
Awesome.